This is Reynosa, Mexico. It's one of the most dangerous places in the world, and it's where hundreds of migrants are waiting, hoping to get asylum in the United States, including many young children who made the journey here on their own. So what am I, a 17-year-old girl from Westchester, New York, doing in the middle of the latest immigration crisis? My name is Julia French, and I came here so I could see for myself what's going on, to try and understand what was making children my age and younger risk their lives just in the hope of becoming an American. These are their stories.
It's so different from what I'm used to. It's just crazy. Just seeing all the people walk around.
No, estoy esperando a alguien que se quede acá atrás. Gracias.
The amount of security just all over the place. It's very gloomy.
That was my first impression of our border with Mexico. I've just arrived in McAllen, Texas, the heart of the current migration crisis, with my journalist dad, Richard French, and producer Norma Galeana. And I quickly realized the crisis is everywhere. Before we could even get into Mexico, we saw buses dropping off dozens of migrants, sending them back to the very country they were trying to escape. Most of them were men, and most only had a small plastic bag to hold their life's possessions. Norma is a journalist with a lot of border experience, so I asked her about them.
Do you think the majority of them are coming from other parts of Mexico or certain places in Central America?
I think at this point it's a mix of Central America, Mexico.
Where are you headed to? Right here to Reynosa.
This is all before we even crossed the McAllen-Hidalgo Bridge.
I'm nervous, but I'm excited to be able to talk to people and see what's going on.
What do you expect to get out of this?
I'm expecting just to be able to see what's happening firsthand and to better understand the issue, just because, you can get so much just from seeing something on a little screen, but being able to see it in person, I think it will definitely change my perspective of things.
Our first stop in Mexico is Reynosa and La Plaza de la República. It's where migrants, forced to wait to apply for asylum, have set up a tent city. Most say they came here at what they call La Invitación, the invitation to America they were led to believe they would receive when Joe Biden became president. But that invitation obviously never happened. Most of the people here are families with young children, and life on the plaza wasn't at all what I expected. This is just tents everywhere. It's very different than anything I've seen in America. People are huddled in their tents with multiple people, not a lot of protection from the rain, the security is limited. It's a lot happening all at once. And if I thought things were hard for them, a rainstorm showed me just how much harder it really is. While hiding from the downpour, I met 9-year-old Charlene and 12-year-old Natalia. Natalia is from Guatemala and traveled thousands of miles with her mom. She says it took them a month and a half to make the trip. Her only fear? When I ask her about her family back home, she tells me her father was killed there. It's why they had to run. I tell her in Spanish, she's very strong.
Tú estás muy fuerte. Sí. Lo siento, mi español es muy terrible, pero...
It's obvious that even though she's only 12, she's seen things that I can't imagine. 9-year-old Charlene's life in Honduras seems better.
Que ella iba a la escuela con mis amigos y ella jugaba con ellos todos los días. Ahí cuando daban tiempo para jugar.
She got to Reynosa with her father, but misses her family back home.
Extraño que a mis hermanos, que yo jugaba con ellos, a mi mamá también, que me la pasaba con ella, ahí jugando también con ella.
And all she wants for her future is to be able to help them.
Quiero ser doctora y poder poder apoyar a mis papás y por eso me quiero ir para allá, a Estados Unidos, para poder allá graduarme y ayudarle a mis papás.
When the rain finally stops, we head back to our car. But before we get in, Norma asks me what I think about what I saw.
It was just very hectic. Everyone was just trying to get shelter, trying to stay dry. And in doing so, I was able to talk to some people about their experiences. And I think that what they were telling me was just further emphasized, like all the burdens, just seeing them have to be under a plastic tent that they all made just to stay dry. Literally seconds away from the border where I'm from, I see people suffering like this. We have no idea how lucky we are to have the lives that we do, and that at the end of the day, what we're seeing on the news isn't the complete reality that of the situation.
As we pull up to our next stop, my mind is still on the migrants living in the makeshift tents in the rain. If they're lucky, some of them will end up here, the Hacienda de Vida shelter, run by Pastor Hector Silva. The kids I met here made the trip on their own, and as dangerous as that sounds, the danger in Reynosa can be even greater.
Los agarraron, los quitaron todo y los fueron a encerrar a una casa. Que los iban a matar si no pagábamos el dinero.
This 18-year-old Honduran girl was kidnapped by a drug cartel when she arrived. We're hiding her identity to protect her. The cartels see migrants as another way to make money.
Los quitaron el teléfono y en el día llevaban una vez al día para que nosotros habláramos con el familiar para que pagaran el dinero.
She's one of the lucky ones because her family was able to pay.
Pues me siento feliz porque ya estoy en un lugar más seguro.
Another girl says coyotes stuffed her into a truck with 70 other people.
Cuando los montaron a unas combis y que no teníamos aire ni nada, que ya los ahogaron. Solo le pedí a Dios que me ayudara porque ya no podía, no alcanzaba respiración, estaba.
She's hoping to get into the United States to make money to help her elderly father. 16-year-olds Katarine and Anamias are just a year younger than I am. They also made the journey to escape violence in their home countries. They met here at the shelter, but are both from Honduras. And both tell the same story over a bowl of chicken soup.
Tuvimos problemas con las pandillas de Honduras, entonces tuvimos que salir obligados.
Nosotros nos tenían amenazadas las pandillas, a mí me querían obligar a vender drogas y todo eso.
It took Katarine 5 months and Anamias 5 weeks to reach Reynosa. Both want the American dream.
Creo que poder llegar a Estados Unidos y tener una vida pues con seguridad y estable.
Tener una vida mejor, un futuro mejor para mi familia, para mí.
Pastor Silva says these stories are not unusual.
Soon that you enter of the Mexican area or Mexico side, there's always like I've been take my telephone, they've been took my money, I got kidnapped.
He says he tries not to get emotional, but some of the stories he just can't forget.
Not long ago, I had this little girl, she was 14 years old, and I saw my wife and asked her, why are you crying? It's a girl right there, you're just talking to her, and she's 14 years old, and she was like 8 months pregnant. So, and it was like, it really impacted me.
He says most of the kids who arrive here alone just want to meet their parents who left them behind.
This boy, he would say, Pastor, if I can give my mom just a hug, I just want to give him a hug and I go back to my country.
As sad as those stories are, we also see hope. Danielle made the trip from Venezuela. While staying at the shelter, he discovered a new talent. He found an old piece of wood and made this painting.
3 bridges are going to like a better place. Is that better place America for you?
Yes.
He says it represents his future.
Para mí representa pues vida, un nuevo camino a una nueva vida, un mejor trabajo y ir a lo grande.
We say goodbye to our friends at Senda de Vida and head back to the United States.
We just got back into the United States, and just the vast visual difference between Texas and Mexico and how crazy it is that this is so many people's lives and that they have to go through all this pain and suffering and having to travel thousands of miles just to get rejected from our country.
I've got a lot on my mind, including what we'll be doing tomorrow. This is our second day here. We're going to a few small towns on the border on the American side just to see how American lives are impacted by the immigration crisis and also see the Rio Grande up close. We start in Granjero, Texas, which, like the sign that welcomes you, has had its ups and downs. The border wall is literally in the backyard of people like Gloria Garza.
They'll tear your fence down. They tear anything. They don't care.
She's lived here her whole life and says that she used to be against the border wall, but not anymore.
There's nights I don't sleep, and you have to be on the watch out. You have to be watching for everything, looking out, because these people are all over the place.
She says she used to give the immigrants who came to her house sandwiches and water, but the people coming over now are, quote, different.
Everybody keeps saying we come because there's hardships and that. This majority of the people, I'm not saying all of them, what scares us, they've caught criminals, they've caught predators, they've caught a lot of people, that's wrong for us here.
In Juan Rodriguez's backyard, the Border Patrol is standing guard. He says life on the border is hard.
Pues es ahorita un poco difícil para nosotros, sobre todo en la noche, porque están pasando muchos camiones, pues voces y pues las patrullas, hay muchas luces, pues esa medianoche no te dejan dormir.
Then there's the junkyard bar, and immigrants often find their way there.
They used to come and knock the door. Please help me, can you lend me your phone or let me come in? And I'm like, no. The last thing I want is get in trouble.
Lupita Salinas is a waitress at the bar. She sympathizes with the migrants and says she's seen things that have shocked her.
I seen like 2 kids walking by themselves from the border, from this walking, and then a border patrol passed by and picked them up.
At nearby Anzaldúa State Park, you'll find families on both sides of the border enjoying their day. On the Texas side, there are people boating and fishing, and on the Mexican side, I can see a family swimming. That's where I met 18-year-old Angel Montoya. I was curious what a kid close to my age who lives here thinks.
You can't judge a book by its cover, like just because they're probably not well off as we are or they don't have the same things we do doesn't mean they're different. We're all people.
He says his great-grandparents immigrated to the United States, so he knows the difference.
My great-grandparents that from a very young age, like around 10 years old, that they would have to work to provide for their family. And over here, you don't really see that often, It's always like, there's always a situation where they're okay, they get to grow up, they get to go to school.
Back in the car, we see bus after bus pass by. They're all filled with migrants being taken back to Mexico. We follow them to the border wall. It's my first time seeing the giant steel fence up close, and I realize it's not just a wall that divides countries.
I feel like it's kind of not taunting. It either pains people or it encourages them to keep on going. And sometimes it's so painful for people to say that I've gone thousands of miles just to stand in front of a wall and I can't do anything really about it. But also at the same time, it encourages many people to say, I'm so close to being where I want to be and being so close to accomplishing my dream.
It's been another emotional day. Tomorrow, we will be visiting a shelter where children are waiting to be reunited with their parents. In speaking with Sister Norma Pimentel, her work with immigrants has earned her the nickname the Pope's favorite nun.
Well, Julia, here we are. We're in Donna, Texas, and this is a detention facility that was in the headlines quite a bit with children here, a lot of times unaccompanied minors. This is a confusing situation. I don't know about you, but after a few days here along the border, I'm as confused as before I came.
Looking at the issue overall, it's a very complex issue because there's not a right or wrong answer, and there's not a direct way to solve it exactly, because we heard both sides that sometimes people are saying, hey, I don't want this on my property, and other times people are saying we just want a better life. So it's never
an easy topic to handle. I think that what we heard and saw is just shows that a lot of people are in despair, and a lot of those people are in our own country, and they came here for the exact opposite. They wanted a better future, they wanted safety, they wanted stability, and what they're getting right now isn't really exactly that. And I also think that if more people saw it firsthand, there would be just more empathy from the American side of things, and that more people would be more understanding and more willing to learn more and pay more attention to this situation. Someone who is paying a lot of attention to the crisis is Sister Norma Pimentel. She runs the Catholic Charities of the Rio Grande Valley in McAllen. It's where newly arrived immigrants can get shelter, food, and medical help.
So many families locally from this area. We saw the families at the bus station, mothers and children crying, hurting, dehydrating, dirty and muddy, and they needed help.
Like Pastor Silva, she also has stories she can't forget.
A woman that is about to give birth and you come like this, and she had a little girl, she was 3 years old. And I said, why would you do this to yourself? Put yourself through all this danger. And she showed me her hand. And it was all disfigured. And she said, you see this? I had some men come into my house. They had a machete, and they struck at my little girl. She's alive only because we're here now. Because they struck to her and I put my hand to save her.
Sister Pimentel has helped thousands of immigrants, but she says it's Americans who make it possible.
It exists only because of the support of thousands of people from the United States saying, I want to help. I want to be there for that child, for that mother, for that family. And this is who we are in the United States. We are people who care.
I asked her how she does it day after day.
I do get tired, and at the end of the day, I end up very tired and I go to sleep tired. But I go to sleep with a sense of peace, with a sense of accomplishment. I've done something good.
Her work has drawn so much attention, she was recognized by Pope Francis himself.
Through you, I want to thank all the sisters of religious orders in the U.S.
It was amazing to have our Holy Father, Pope Francis, recognize the work that so many of us here at the border are doing to receive these families, to care for them. And his message is, don't shut your heart down.
And I see that message everywhere at Catholic Charities. Just like in La Plaza de la República, kids are playing and people are getting supplies. But here, I see hope and joy. Like in 17-year-old Arlen Perez. He just arrived with his dad.
Fue bastante difícil el camino, porque hay veces que uno no duerme bien, hay veces no duerme.
His American dream is to study, get a job, and help his family. He says stepping onto the U.S. soil meant everything.
Sí me puse bien contento porque ya pasó toda la pesadilla de estar en ese camino.
He is very much on my mind when we leave.
I think that being able to be in America for him and many people like him means so much more than just crossing a border. Being born in America is seen as a privilege now. It's me living in New York. I've never thought about it being better than living somewhere else. But now I realize that these kids view me and my life as their dream, and that they want something that I was just given at birth.
Our journey to the border is almost over, and ironically, it ends how it began. With signs of the crisis everywhere. We stumble on a small group of migrants with the Texas State Highway Patrol.
Nos entregamos porque nos cansamos.
After a month on the road and 10 days trying to cross the border without eating, they simply gave up. My trip to the border has made the crisis very real for me. My dad asks me about it right before we leave.
Is it what you expected, the migrant crisis you saw firsthand?
We talked a lot about this at home. We've seen a lot of news on this, but I am really surprised to the extent of the immigration crisis and the amount of people that I saw suffering. Discussing the topic of it being black and white, I just think that's not true. There's so much gray in between. It's such a complex topic and there's not a right or wrong, and being able to hear both sides of the discussion, I think that I'm able to
really grasp the situation and understand how pressing of an issue it is.
Finally, another thing that struck me was they all talked about what they were hoping to find in America.
Yeah, I think that the media really focuses on these migrants running away from something and not really the aspect of them running to something, which is the American dream. They all want a better future, whether that is being able to get an education or getting a job, being able to reunite with family. And I think that that's what really keeps a lot of these migrants going, especially on these extremely hard trips to places like Reynosa and America in itself.
I'm sure your friends are going to ask about what you saw. What will you tell them?
We all know that this is an issue, but we have to understand how much help these people need and how the young generation that can really connect to these people is use our voices for the better and be able to tell other people how pressing of an issue this is, why these people need help, and how we can help them.
Yay! And it brings me back to something Sister Pimentel told me when I asked her what people can do to help. She didn't ask for money or food or medical supplies. Instead, she says she wants us all to remember
is to begin to care for humanity.
And like Sister Pimentel and Pastor Silva, I too now have stories I will never forget. And I will keep sharing them because, as my new friend Angel said,
occasionally you hear that, oh, why are they doing this? Why are they going to come over here into our country? They should just stay over there. But in reality, if the roles were reversed, wouldn't you want to come over here?